All right, 3.4e, fifth video, and like I said on the last one, hopefully this will be a shorter video because I only have two examples here. But again, we're just going to do Descartes' rule of signs just to find out what are possible answers here. And we'll use this a little bit further and go into a little bit more depth here later. Right now we're just trying to figure out what our possible answer options are. Okay, so there's my problem. All right, so let's look at the variations of just this one to find out how many positive answers we have. And again, I'm going to make my little table here. And I've got my positives, my negatives, and my non-reals. And we'll see what we have here. How many answers, what's the maximum number of answers? 4. So I'm going to put a 4 up here, knowing that however many columns I have, they have to add up to 4. All right, so number of variations. I have I'd like to put the positive there just to remind me. I have positive to negative. So there's 1. I have negative to positive. So that's another. I have a positive to negative. God, there's a lot of them here. That's another. And then I have a negative to a positive. So that is another. So the maximum number of positive answers I can have there is 4. Okay, so let's put 4 here for the most positive answers. But I could also have 2 and 0, because remember, you subtract 2 from the maximum number you can have until you get to 0, and that tells you the possible. So that means I'm going to have stinking 3 columns worth of possible answers. All right, so I don't even have to look at this one here, because if we have a possibility of 4 answers and all 4 of them are positive, that means there's no negatives and no non-real. So I can just finish that column. So again, these columns have to add up to the total number of answers you can have. All right, so that being the case, let's look at P of x before we go on, or P of negative x. I'm going to have to put that kind of over here a little bit, aren't I, to make sure I've got room to write everything. And that's going to be 5 to the negative x to the 4th minus 3 to the negative x cubed plus 7 to the negative x squared minus 12 to the negative x plus 4. And we write this, it's going to be rewritten as 5x to the 4th plus 3x cubed plus 7x squared plus 12x plus 4. No variation of sign because they're all positive. So that's 0, this is 0, and that's 0. So every column, there aren't going to be any negative answers. All right, so that tells me if all the columns need to add up to 4, that are possible of non-zero would be 2 here and 4 here. So those are our possibilities. And that's all I want. That's all I want for them to answer. All right, let's look at example 10 and we'll be done. Now, example 10, if you remember one of the instructions, you have to have a constant term that's not 0. And here we would have a plus 0 here as our constant term. All right, but one of the things that's important is each one of these has an x. So I can factor out an x. And now I have a constant term, okay? So I know that one of my answers is going to be 0, right? Whenever you factor out a variable, that makes it so one of your zeros ends up being 0. All right, but then, so now we're going to look and see what we get when we analyze that. All right, so we get 6 answers. But one of those 6 answers is going to be 0. So we have 5 answers we're going to look at here. So 5 answers. We have positive, negative, and non-real. And I don't know how many columns we're going to have here. Let's look at our variation. Positive to negative is 1. Okay, that's it. There's no other variations there. So positive to negative. So one option there. We subtract 2, we get to -1, so that doesn't help us. So if that's the case, we have one option. All right, let's look at negatives. 6 to the negative x to the 5th minus 2 times negative x minus 5. That equals a negative 6x plus 2 minus 5. So we have one variation, we have two variations there. But if we have two variations, we also have 0 variations. Okay, but that's also 1 because we found out there's only one possible variation with the positive. So it doesn't matter how many columns across we have, we're going to have one positive answer regardless of what the other combinations are. Alright, so that means we have 2 here because that adds up to 5, and we have 4 here. So we have for our answers, because of this, we have 0. So 0 is for sure one of our answers. Okay, it's not that there are 0 possibilities. 0 is an answer. And then for what figures out to be x in here is either going to be a positive, 2 negative, 2 non-real, or a positive, 0 negative, and 4 non-real. So those are our combinations, this column or this column, for the number of answers that are in here. For the number of answers, not the answers, but the number of different types of answers. And then one of our answers is going to be 0. So 5 answers here, 1 answer here, adds up to 6 possible answers. And that is it for 3.4.